All those times that I was dancing and cheering, I was doing that while I was climbing the corporate ladder. And I was kind of doing it secretly. I just want to have this book in front of as many hands as possible, because these were the things that when I was in the toxic environment and I didn't know what to do. And if you do that slowly 3 times, it's a gift that you give yourself. And when you open your eyes, you are completely re-energized. We think we need this big thing and then everything is going to be better with this big, huge change in our lives. Or I get that big promotion, or I get that title, or I get whatever the get is. But we just did 3 deep breaths and we felt amazing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Broken Beautiful Me. Today, I am so honored to have as my guest Nicole Van Valen. She is a distinguished leader, speaker, and author of The Joyful Leader, with 25 years of experience in healthcare, behavioral health, and entertainment. As the CEO and founder of Keen Insights, she drives growth and vibrant cultures in organizations, emphasizing transformative resilience, stress management, and inclusion. A former Miami Dolphins cheerleader and Miami Heat dancer, Nicole inspires resilience inside and outside the workplace. She holds a master's in family therapy and is a senior certified professional with credentials and expertise in inclusive workplace culture, while dedicated to leading with empathy, effectiveness, and a commitment to love, joy, and spirit. Nicole, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Kelly, thank you for having me here. I'm excited for our conversation.
Me too. So just before we dive in deep, just tell our audience, for those people who may not be familiar with you or your work, just tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be this person who helps so many.
Oh, well, my name is Nicole Van Valen, and I live in sunny South Florida. My company is Keen Insights, so I'm the founder and CEO of Keen Insights, and we provide presentations and training and strategy for executives and professionals in the realm of resilience, stress management, and of course, alleviating burnout are our top priorities, because it's running rampant these days with all of the changes that are happening in our professional lives, but also in our home lives as well. Mm-hmm. And how do we not just balance that, but how do we manage things? How do we thrive? How do we be our authentic selves and give back to our families and our communities from a place of wholeness, so we can give fully and receive fully? And that's what allows us to be in this joyful state, regardless of what's happening in our surroundings. So I work with executives and their teams so that they can understand themselves, what brings them joy, understand the environment they're in, their teams, who they're working with, and then they can go ahead and meet their goals and take action on those goals to fulfill what they want to fulfill in their lives, both professionally and personally. The reason why we built Keen Insights was because I went through various toxic work environments, and I had to find a way to sustain myself. And looking back, my resilience resource was dance. So all those times that I was dancing and cheering, I was doing that while I was climbing the corporate ladder. And I was kind of doing it secretly because, not everyone accepts that in the corporate world. So I kind of did that. And then as I was rising in the corporate world, I became a senior manager, and they asked me to do an interview because we created this peer support group during COVID. So I did the interview. They asked about dance and cheer, and I answered it, and I didn't get a negative backlash from it. So I was like, oh, I guess it's okay to let the cat out of the bag that I had this other life. So I that was my catalyst to say I just embraced my full authentic self, fully my joyful self, and still be strategic and engaging and get the job done, but still be able to do it from a joyful place, regardless of what's going on in the environment. So I had a lot of experience with different teams, cross-functionally, different departments, different organizations, for-profit, nonprofit. So I took all of those years of experience, all of the things I read, because I'm an undercover nerd, research, and I just created keen insights based on all of these things, because I don't want other people to experience some of the things that I experienced, even though looking back now, it was the best thing to experience, because this is where we are now and we can help other people.
Well, it truly propelled you to create something that that addressed what you experienced in a toxic workplace. And I mean, we've all kind of been there. If you're in a toxic workplace, you carry that with you. I mean, I remember when I first started in healthcare in my career, and one of my managers, I was in nursing, and she was like, you just leave your personal stuff at the door. And I thought that was ridiculous. How can you leave your personal stuff at the door? But in the same way, how can you leave that work stuff when you open that door? You want to be able to do it. But if you're in a toxic situation, that's very difficult to let that go.
Yeah. And I didn't even know I was in a toxic environment at the time. I was just there and like trying to bring things together and make things work and do all of this extra stuff, and exhausted. And I'm like, oh, I don't understand. But I went right back in there. And then when I got out of it, I was like, oh my gosh, a weight's lifted off of my shoulder. I can breathe. And then I probably had a little PTSD too, because my husband's like, you don't work there anymore. You don't have to worry about that. I'm like, oh, that's right.
That is so funny. But I mean, it's so true. You do carry it. I have a few places I carried with me for far too long before I was like, okay, that luggage is getting too heavy. Let's put that down.
Exactly.
So you then, now your book is coming out in May.
Well, it's coming out at the end of this month, April.
Okay.
Like it's going to be debuted on the 28th is what we're planning. So I have a couple events coming up this month where I'll be debuting the book at those particular events. But the big to-do launch is towards the end of April. And I wanted to have this because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I wanted to be able to share this life's work that I poured into this book. I'll tell you a story. It's so interesting. So I needed to have one final read for my book, with the publisher. So I gave it to my dad, who's a retired OBGYN. He's a physician. And he's the type that he was a writer and everything too. So I gave it to him. He checked everything. And my mom calls me and she goes, don't tell your dad, but he said this is a bestseller. And I'm like, Dad said that? Like, he's a sweetheart, but he's like strict on education and making sure it's done properly. I'm from the Caribbean and education's everything. So it's like that. And I go, really? And then he called me and he said, I finished your book, and it was like within one day. And he said that it's like a textbook, right? And he thinks everyone should have it, but it reads like a novel. And I was like, I was in silent shock. I don't know what the word is that my dad said that. And he's like a quiet man. And I was like, I didn't really, this is my first book, so I just did it however I could. And of course, it's going to be different than anybody else's book.
I think that's great. Obviously, like a textbook, it has that meat to it, but reads like a novel because it resonated with him, probably from experiences he had. Healthcare is a very high pressure environment. And I'm sure that a lot of what you said resonated with him. It's always good to get dad, like a thumbs up from dad too, right?
I know. I was like, and then my mom's like, well, what about me? I have to tell her I wrote an article about her yesterday. She's in it. But she feels good. But yeah, so the book has a lot of peer-reviewed research, like the nerd side of myself. It has a lot of stories. And then I interviewed people in industries that I am familiar with and that I grew up with and that I love. So I have the sports industry, of course, because of my cheer and dance with the NBA and the NFL. And then I have philanthropists because I'm always giving back to the community. And we had entertainment. So that goes along with the dance as well. So all of these different people, and then of course, healthcare professionals were in there as well, giving their stories of how they lead with resilience and how they lead with joy. So it has some of my stories, and it has expert stories, and then it has a lot of research, and then it has actionable things that people can do, put on their calendar and do immediately to alleviate stress and be in more of a joyful state. So that's why I just want to have this book in front of as many hands as possible, because these were the things that when I was in the toxic environment and I didn't know what to do, figured out and learned from the families that I did therapy sessions with before. And I did these things myself. I utilize the things daily to stay on top of things. So I want to share it with as many people as possible so they can figure out what works for them.
So the transformative perspective on leadership that you're bringing to the table, your moments of struggle really brought that forward in what you created in the book. Can you share a couple of examples of stress relievers? Because I'm thinking we're all so stressed out these days, and like just throw one out for us to see what we can do.
I'll tell you a story what I like to do, and then I'll throw out some things that other people have said from different presentations that I've given. So for me, I love a hot cup of chai. If I can have a hot cup of tea alone myself, that would be great. So, but I had to learn how to create that space for myself. Sometimes we have 5 of us in the house here. We have teens and young adults. And I would say to everyone, because I work from home. So when I leave my office, when it's 5 o'clock, I'm trying to create boundaries. When it's 5 o'clock, I'm going to stop working. And all I want to do is leave my desk, walk to the kitchen, make my hot cup of chai, because I have that new machine thing. It's so exciting. And walk back to my office and have 15 minutes by myself. So I actually let them know exactly what I need. So when they see me walking there, they're not bothering me, and I'm not done. I'm not ready.
Yep.
Drink it. And I go, this is for my own health and well-being, but it's for my family's health and well-being too, because they'll get a more joyful Nicole, or a more joyful mom, or a more joyful wife when I get out of my work mode and go into my home mode. So that's one thing. I love gardening and smelling roses. So I would actually, when I go buy roses, I make sure that it's blooming and I can actually smell it. So I know the roses smell good, and I'll plant them in the backyard, and I literally will take my break and go and smell each of the roses.
Oh.
That brings me joy. So a lot of it is simple things. Another big one I introduce in training sessions or webinars is just taking 3 deep breaths. Just sitting, closing your eyes, breathing slowly in through your nose, all the way down to your belly, and expanding your stomach, and then breathing out. And if you do that slowly 3 times, it's a gift that you give yourself.
It is.
And when you open your eyes, you are completely re-energized.
Yeah.
So you're bringing oxygen to the brain of where you need it, and you can just switch and refocus. Even if you're having negative thoughts because you're in a toxic environment and you're like, what's going on? You can go, even if you're at work, go into the bathroom, go outside to your car, take your 3 deep breaths, come back in. I had someone who was doing a lot of the legal documents and did that exercise. And it was towards the end of the day, like 3-4 o'clock, when you really don't want to do anything else at work. He felt so renewed that he could go through and tackle that contract that needed to be looked at. And he was within a mental well-being space, legal. It's us sometimes when we're in the healthcare space that we have to make sure we do what we try to help and assist other people with doing. So those are the key things. And a lot of this comes from, so those are the things that I really like doing, but everyone's different. So some people may not want to do breathing or gardening or dancing. They may have something else that they enjoy. So this is where we created this 3-step model. It's a ready, set, go model. So you get ready, you go do something that you enjoy. So if you're feeling stress, you have to recognize that you're stressed, and then you go and do something you enjoy, whatever that is. And then you get ready, you get set. That means you go back into your environment. You can now work with your teams or whatever you're doing, because you're in a different headspace now, because you just came out of doing something that you enjoyed. And then you go and you take action and do whatever it is that you needed to do. So this is your way of replenishing yourself. And when I'm at my heightened stress level, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I have this model. Let me go do that.
Because sometimes it's the hardest thing to do is to take your own advice, right?
Exactly.
It is. Smelling the roses, that's so beautiful. Nature for me too. I find it to be such an inspiration to just step outside, like especially spring when like my azaleas are about to pop right now. And I just can't wait to go out and be taking pictures. My husband laughs at me walking around my yard with my phone. He goes, how many pictures of azaleas do you need, girl? So
that's awesome. I did the same thing the other day. I wrote about it too. I was like, I came out and I have these orchids and they smell, because we went to an orchid show. So I pick things that smell good. Yeah. And it's the same color actually of what I'm wearing. And I walk out the front door, it's on my big tree. So I literally was walking around the tree, taking pictures. And smelling them. My neighbor probably thinks, what is happening here? But yeah, so I'm glad that we connect on the gardening and the flowers. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And what I find sometimes too, when you're talking about the deep breaths, I don't think we realize as a society just how shallow we breathe now. When we're walking around day to day, we're just that shallow breathing, and we're not. It's like the oxygen to the brain is one part of it, but just like our interpretation of data, like we're just not taking in enough air. We're just not releasing enough air. We're not moving our diaphragm enough. And the difference that it can make when I first started on that journey of, okay, self-care, how do I do that? What do I have to do? And I started this breathing practice. I was amazed how quickly I could calm down from a very stressful moment.
Right.
Whether it was work or something personal that was happening that was upsetting or whatever. So the breath is a hugely important tool that we can use.
It is, so much so that I began having these joyful meditations every Monday morning at 7:30. And I'm not a morning person at all, but I want to start my Mondays right, because even though I'm not in a corporate environment and I'm an entrepreneur, we still need to take care of ourselves. And get ourselves ready. So we started this meditation. It's 15 minutes, a guided meditation. It's on joy as well, just to get people ready and going. That's something that I offer, like a complimentary thing, because I said, I'm doing this anyway for myself, so why not have other people join? So that's another thing that people that are listening to your show could have access to, if that's something that they're interested in. So that's something a little bit more on the spiritual side of things, of the joy, because it's meditation. But I've had some really great feedback on the joyful meditation where people could actually visualize any negative energies being replaced by joyful energies, and they were able to go forward in the rest of their day and throughout the week, just more energized for what they need to do. So that's another great thing that we could offer your listeners.
Oh, that's so kind of you. I'm sure that there are many listeners who could benefit from that for sure. Um, so so before we pressed record, we were chatting away and I was loving it. And we were one of the things that we were talking about was the intersection of your work and my work. So the joyful leader, you are talking about leaders and how they can become kind of the best version of themselves through these practices, which then enables them to be better leaders for their employees. On my side, I'm working with people who may have lost a loved one. Some people are going through very painful divorces, job loss. People are still emotionally recovering from COVID and all of the sense of community that was lost during that time and that we're still trying to kind of regain, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for the leader that you are guiding, what do you say to them about how they help their employees who are walking in through the door and they feel like they've got lead boots on and rocks in their pocket and they are just struggling to get through the day? So how can that leader help them?
So the number one thing would be to recognize them, to recognize that someone on their team is going through something. They may notice that they're not themselves. They may notice they're coming in with bags under their eyes. They may not be as proactive or participating in group discussions, whatever it is. So if it's someone that's very outgoing and they notice they have a change in behavior or vice versa, it's the first thing is to identify as a leader that there's something different going on with your staff member. And then the second thing is to create a safe space to have a discussion with them, and not to be a therapist per se, but just letting them know that if there's something that they need, if there's something that they need to talk about, there's an open door policy, or they're needing assistance with support with their work. Do they need other type of support if something personal is going on and their employee feels comfortable enough to share it? It's creating that psychologically safe space for their team. And how they know that it is a psychologically safe space is if that leader is talking about mental well-being matters. If they're talking about it in their one-on-ones, in their teams, if they're checking in with their team members, if that leader is taking their PTO for real and not sending emails or replying to emails while they're supposed to be gone, that lets their team know that they can be really off the grid when they take their PTO to do whatever they need to do personally. And so that's kind of leading by example. And then there's also knowing what resources that leader has available to them within their organization. So touching base with their employee assistance program in their organization if they have that. If it's a small organization and they don't have something like that, then understanding what's in the community and what's nationally, what numbers can be provided. Like there's this 988 number that it's a crisis number, it's a suicide prevention number, like, and you can easily remember that, or 211. Like those are two numbers that a leader is not giving therapy, they're not doing something that they don't feel comfortable doing, but if someone opens up to them, at least they have a resource that they can provide to them. And then another thing they could do too is touching base with the HR manager that they have to see what is available for people resources, and then being able to pull in HR when needed. That's appropriate, that's confidential, and that follows all of their organizational guidelines and policies and procedures, of course.
Right. That is some great tips, and I'm struck by the one that you said, and it's so true for so many. And my best friend and I have had this discussion. When your boss takes time off and is responding to emails, you're kind of setting the tone for when you go on your vacation, right? And
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be that way. There's only so many hours in the day. If you don't recharge, you can't be a joyful leader
Absolutely.
unless you take some time away. And then the expectation that you're setting for your staff is that they cannot take that time either. I just think that's so important.
It is. I remember because I remember being in that situation myself, and you're kind of like, I love freedom. So, when my manager would go on vacation, I'm like, this is great. I can just focus on my work. There are going to be less meetings, less interruptions. Because I kind of like when I zone in, I zone in.
Yeah.
And I was like, nope, it's not happening. There are emails flying in. I was like, what's going? Or one time I remember because I was one of the remote ones and the rest were in the office and they had an event and I didn't fly up for the event. And I was like, great, I can zero in, I can focus. The manager actually had the computer and called me from the computer, like FaceTime. I was like, everyone's asking about you. And she's showing me around. And I was like, thank goodness I put myself together today. I thought I was going to be free to work.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I am of the generation, I grew up before cell phones, dating myself. And then I do remember the first cell phones where it was the size of a box of pasta. But before that, you were able to disconnect. And then these cell phones came. And when the BlackBerry came out, then that changed everything.
Yeah.
Everything changed. And now I hear from so many people when I'm talking, I hear about Microsoft Teams, and it's a wonderful tool for people to use. Not dissing Microsoft Teams at all. However, again, it should operate within normal working hours to give people a chance to renew and rest and connect with their family and their friends. And just, because especially if they've got other things going on in their lives, they need that time.
Well, when we get that time, that's when the magic happens. We're more innovative, we're more energized, we can bring even more back to the organization. So if I know I have a clean respite where I don't have to think about work or anything like that, and I'm in my personal joy space or whatever I'm doing away, you come back and you're more energized and more vibrant and you can contribute even more. It's just like working at home. If you're working from home and you're hammering away on the computer and you're just exhausted and you get up and you just walk around the neighborhood or do something different, you kind of disrupt it for a little bit and then you come back, you can like finish that report like nothing or
Yeah.
whatever it is you were trying to do. It's because you have allowed yourself to space to breathe and refocus, re-energize, and then you come back even stronger. It's like you kind of bounce back to spring forward in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. So turning it around a little bit and thinking about the employees for a second. So what would you share? I mean, you have such a wealth of experience and expertise. And I'm just looking like in terms of family therapy as well. What would you say to someone, and not necessarily about work? They come to you and they're saying, I'm stuck. Like this happened to me and I don't know how to find a path out of this. What do I do? What would you say to that person?
I would say, first of all, I would thank them for coming to me and thank them for being vulnerable and
Mm,
trusting me with what they're going through in this moment because it takes a lot of courage to do that.
it does.
So that would be the first thing. And then I would ask them a series of questions to help pull out specifically what's going on for them right now
Mm-hmm.
What is the hardship? What would they see as being, what would they see on the other side when it's resolved? So it's kind of giving me a sense of where they are right now and where they want to be.
Yep.
And then that way, it's part of the strategy part of figuring those two ends, bookends. And then we can kind of together navigate a way for them to get to that, the other side. And doing it in a way that's comfortable for them. Because a lot of times we know the answer within ourselves, but with this heightened stress and the pressure and the burnout, we are not able to tap into the resources we have within. So, what I would be doing is asking questions to kind of move away the cobwebs and the noise to get to the core of what's going on. And then a lot of times it's that person who's the one that comes up with what they need to do, what the plan is. I'm just helping to guide them with the baby steps. Because so I interviewed someone. He's a comedian, Finesse Mitchell, and I think he's so funny. We went to college together, so he's in the book, and he was saying, you know, when you want to get somewhere, you can't just take one step on the ground and then the other foot at the top of the ladder. And then, of course, I had this visualization stuck in a split. And he's like, no, you can look up there and see where you want to be, but you have to actually take one step at a time. Right? So whenever I feel overwhelmed, I think about what Finesse said. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to do the splits right now. I'm not very flexible. I never was. I don't even know how I did jump splits when I was a cheerleader, but I'm not doing that anymore at this age. I can take an easier route and I can be easy on myself and I can take one step. Like, we can take the one step, or, you know, or take, if we're in a wheelchair, one roll, or however we're on a walker, one, you know, whatever the thing is that we're on, we can do that one next thing. Mm-hmm. It's manageable, but the whole split ladder thing is unrealistic.
It is. Hey guys, Kelly here. I wanted to jump in and let you know that you can find out more about my work by visiting my website at kellybuckley.com, or you can find my books on Amazon. Okay, back to the episode. Do you find that one of the reasons that people get stuck is because they can't recognize in their pain sometimes that between A and Z, there's all these other little points. They just think that I'm here, I want to be there. And they don't realize that it's okay if you only take one step today. That's one step further down the road, and you are getting closer to healing. I always say, you know, it may be dark now, but you can discover those flickers of light. No matter how dark your life is, you have to keep looking, and each day a little flicker will appear. And that's advice I can't take credit for it. My brother gave it to me, but very wise man. Don't tell him I said so. No, he is. He's the greatest. But you know, you take those little steps, and you look for those one little things. You give yourself permission to move slowly through this. When you go through something that is so devastating, you shouldn't rush through it. It's okay for you to sit with it, right? It's
okay to recognize that this is the space that you're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be there for that moment until you are ready to take that step. And it's okay to have time for yourself. It's okay to be next to someone and not say anything and just have someone supportive by your side. It's okay. Like, all of the things that you need in your journey of regaining your resilience and your strength, it's okay. I think we were talking about before the recording that, you know, one of the things that my mom always says to me is like, just sleep on it. Yeah. It'll be better in the morning. And I'm like, and I do it and I'm like, oh, I'm refreshed with new ideas and it's not so gloomy as what I thought when I went to bed. And if we could be just resilient enough to go to sleep and sleep on it, and then you can take action on what you want to take action on after you're in a different state of mind. And that's what sleep does. It gives you that respite. And you're able to, if I go into a spiritual sense, you're able to re-energize yourself in that sleep. And then when you wake up, you have healed so many parts of yourself that you may not even be aware of. So, now I want to go research that even more because I understand it from a spiritual perspective, but it would be great to see what the science is too of what happens to your body when you're sleeping, like the REM sleep and all of the different things, so that you are energized the next day and you can think differently. It's all about how we think. There's so much power in our thought patterns and the way we visualize things. Like if you think of Tiger Woods, he won the golf match before he even hit the ball because he already visualized winning the whole thing, meaning the details of everything.
Right.
It was in his way of thinking. If you think about Michael Jordan, like you think of the best basketball player, he failed thousands of times, but we don't hear about the failures. We hear about all the rings and the success and what he won because he was resilient through those fail shots.
Right.
And now we remember the smoothie, like all the accolades of those things. So I think that's where we need to look at little things I do it too. We think we need this big thing and then everything is going to be better with this big, huge change in our lives, or I get that big promotion, or I get that title, or I get whatever the get is. But we just did 3 deep breaths and we felt amazing. Or we took a nap. We smelled a rose, whatever. And we felt really good too.
And I so agree with you about a good night's sleep. And you can find on the Calm app, or you can even go on YouTube, or I think iTunes has it as well. Like they have free versions of sleep meditations that are quite helpful. I love listening to binaural beats. So when you look at like those alpha, beta, and theta waves that kind of reprogram your brain. It really does. And so there's some that you can listen to for sleep. When I'm writing, I have one of my favorites, and it's for focus, and I put that on, and it's just kind of this instrumental kind of sounds kind of new wave-ish, but I focus because it is changing my neural pathways, literally. And we have to pay attention to that and start talking about more of those tools that are out there now and available to people.
Definitely, because when you think about this, it's looking at all the different senses that we have in this, I like to say, human body. So like for me, it's a smelling, but you're talking about sounds. And, we talked about our thought process, even visually, how we set up our office and the aesthetics, like all of these things help us to do whatever the go is in our ready, set, go. So it's about finding out what works for us, or, what's worked for other people. And then you can test and learn for yourself to find the thing that really works for you.
So tell me how gratitude fits into all of this.
Well, you know what I do? Basically, every morning I will do a meditation prayer, and then I have this journal that I use. And asks, it has a quote and it asks different questions, and it always asks, what are you grateful for? And some days I can put out all the things that I'm grateful for, like, oh, this happened, that happened, I'm so excited, blah, blah, blah. And then other days I'm like, what am I grateful for? I don't know. But then if you sit with it for a little bit, then you're like, wow, I'm grateful for the home I'm in. And then I start talking about like my spiritual journey, all of the different things, like being able to pet my dog because she's really calm and relaxing. Like all of it's going back to like little things again that remind you um, that either you're not alone, meaning even if you're physically by yourself, you're really not alone because you have yourself, you have your thoughts, you have all of these different tools and mechanisms. And it reminds you that you have a lot of value. And then it also reminds you of people that are valuable in your life as well, because you can talk about different relationships that you are grateful for. Even if you go through something that's not very pleasant, like, I talked about the toxic environment, I can now be grateful for those experiences because that's what's helped me get to where I am now, to help me create products and services in the book and be able to help and support other people in their life journey to overcome stress and burnout. So now I can be grateful for, any toxic managers, coworkers, or workspaces. I'm like, oh yeah, this was great because I developed my resilience and processes to overcome some of these challenges. And if I didn't overcome them during the time, if I didn't feel like I did, now I feel like I have tools looking back to say, okay, these are some of the things that would have helped me back then, and maybe they can help someone else now.
I love that. What do you say to leaders about sharing gratitude in the workplace?
Oh, they can't share enough gratitude in the workplace. I always say, if you communicate something, you have to over communicate it. If you say it 7 times, you need to say it 12 times. I think gratitude is something a leader needs to express for themselves,
Yes.
introspectively, so that they can have that spirit of gratitude within them, embodied in them. And then once you do that and you're in a joyful space, you start seeing beauty all around you, even though it may not be the best environment. You start narrowing and focusing on these beautiful things. So a leader that can show gratitude for someone that held the door open for them or held the elevator door open for them and say thank you, that you're grateful for that. Or, I like to say, if you see something, just say it in the moment. If you see something beautiful that someone's doing or saying, it's encouraging, especially if it's coming from a leader and you're like, wow, I never knew that they thought this way about me, or I didn't even know they were nice. It could be anything, or just like, oh, they're human. Okay, that's great. Or it even goes to the point of someone that may be in mid-management may say, I want to be, when I'm a senior leader, this is the type of leader that I want to be like. And that has been amazing because I call them mentors per se, where I have seen someone, I might have been a senior manager and there's someone in the C-suite and I'm like, oh, I like what they're doing, whether I personally or that I've seen or through LinkedIn or read a book or whatever. And I reach out to them and want some time on their calendar and speak to them. And then later hear them say something grateful for our conversation. I'm like, I thought I was reaching out to you to get some help for me. You're saying that was a good experience. And I'm finding more and more. And as I mentor others, pay it forward, you feel this sense of gratitude for being able to assist other people. It's like when they win, you win. And it's even better feeling than when you do something by yourself.
I love, and I'll give a shout out to my husband for this. So we are entrepreneurs too, and we have another business besides what I'm doing here. And he's very good at, in the moment, if a client gives a compliment, he doesn't keep it and hide it under a bushel. He goes to the person who made it happen.
Mhm.
And we often talk about, the doors are only open because of our employees. We couldn't do this without them. So we need to be saying thank you. And I love that in just a short little email. Sometimes it's a handwritten note, which I love handwritten notes. Oh, it's a lost art. I love them. But just like, thank you for doing that. It really makes a difference.
Mhm.
And that can carry someone over so many difficult days. So on the difficult days, if they have this little card that you wrote them on their little bulletin board where you said thank you, they can look up at that and say, my boss still thinks I have value. And this is a tough day, but it's only one day. And there's another 364 in this year. I'm going to be good.
Yeah, Kelly, you're talking about what we're saying. It's the simple things. Like, you think we have to do all this stuff and amazing things for our employees and spend all of this money, and you can write a thank you note.
Right.
I mean,
Literally on a post-it note if you don't have a note card, guys. Like really, you can just
like,
simple type an email or anything. It's so easy to just say thank you. And I would love, it would be my dream to go into an organization and to do kind of a gratitude experiment because, after a couple of weeks, if you read about positive psychology, gratitude and it changes your neural pathways. If you consistently practice it over just 2-3 weeks, you can see a difference. And I can't tell you when the shift happened because we did it as a family looking for our one little things.
Mhm.
Once we shifted, we couldn't help but find blessings and we stopped noticing. Not that we stopped noticing, we weren't completely oblivious to the tough things or things that weren't going right, but we could reframe it and we had perspective.
Yes.
And wouldn't it be something to go into an organization and say, okay, everybody here, here's our little gratitude experiment and see how fast the organization would transform.
That is amazing because I just came out of doing a whole bunch of CEU credits for my licensure. So I did this one on suicide prevention because I was telling you I'm the mental health initiative chair for Kennedy Kids Foundation that helps children or youth with suicidal ideation. And so in the research there, they were talking, I think it was that course, they were talking about letters like that were being written to people. And then the program ended, but they kept writing, or maybe it was an experimental group. When the program ended, they stopped sending to some and they kept sending letters to others, whether they were in the program or not. Mm-hmm. And they tracked them over time and they had less suicidal attempts.
Wow.
With the ones that they weren't in the program, but they were just getting periodic letters that they were remembered. And so your experiment definitely probably would work.
Yeah.
We should talk about doing that with our kids.
Let's do it. Any companies out there who want us to come, we're available.
We'll do some writing campaigns, make everyone feel better with their lives.
Well, it's just such a simple thing. And I think once you realize the power of gratitude, of joy, and the possibilities that it brings, and it doesn't mean that you are in denial about anything that's happening in your life. And it can't change the pain of some things that happen to your life. But I always say it can't change the pain, but it can alleviate some of the suffering. And so be the person who helps alleviate that suffering.
Exactly. And joy, when you think about it, it's a little bit different than happiness and unhappiness because that's situational of what's going on in your life. But when you tap into the joy aspect, that's something within you, regardless of what's going on, that could shift you to happiness or unhappiness. So it's not saying that you don't have you haven't experienced the pain, like you said before, the suffering. just like the kids I was telling you about at experience camps for grieving kids, they're at a camp, a week-long camp. 90% is fun, having a great time, like what you did as a kid at camp. And then the 10% is the grieving aspect and the mental health and well-being aspect. And the kids are having all of this joy, and they're at a grief camp. Like, think about that. So you can be grieving a loss and still have joy within. And then over time, you can tap into that and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And then what usually happens is you maintain your joy, even though you might have times of sadness, of grieving and missing the person, but your joy keeps getting bigger and bigger. And then you find more and more ways to contribute to the community and society. So that's why a lot of the kids, they grow up and become counselors, or they come back and serve in some other way. So we're complex. So we can have both sides and make the smoothie from them.
We absolutely can. And I think that part of the conversation that we need to continue to have is that it's okay if you're grieving and you have a happy day. That's okay. That was a struggle for me, that I was doing something with my younger son, and I mean, I was just having a great day. And then I kind of had this feeling like, oh, should I be feeling, that kind of pang in your stomach, that bad feeling. And I thought, would Stephen want you to just let go of that joy that you're having with his brother? No, he wouldn't. He would want you to celebrate it and to embrace it. And I will tell you, like, as my first book that I put out is called Gratitude and Grief. And it was kind of a different discussion that I was having about having gratitude, even though I was grieving, finding moments to be thankful for, even though I was absolutely shattered into a million pieces. But what I want to share, and what I love talking to our listeners about, is I tethered all those little pieces together every day, all those one little things. I tied them all together. That's what got me out. I found my path out that way.
Oh.
And that's what we all can do. We all have the power to do that. I love that you are bringing all of this wisdom to the workplace. I mean, it's just so needed. Yay, you. I can't do the splits like you with the cheerleading, but I can,
It's so interesting because no matter what because I'm mainly in the healthcare, mental health industry, but no matter what industry you're in, and I talk about resilience and stress, I mean, it's there. Even in some places that I'm like, oh, this is beautiful art. I'm walking an art gallery and they're talking about stress. And I'm like, really? I'm surrounded by beautiful art and things like that. So it's nice to have this connection with other people, and where people feel comfortable enough to open up about the struggles and the difficulties that they're going through. And then it's even more amazing to talk about solutions and strategies to alleviate some of that. And then they get to walk away and know that they can do this at any time.
Yeah.
Like anytime we can take the baby steps.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. What do you think about grief education in the workplace?
I mean, I know that there are things in place from an employee HR perspective, and in regards to bereavement. So I know there's something that's there. There may be some type of stigma still around because it still aligns with mental health and well-being, and that has a stigma, even though it's gotten a little bit better since COVID. The younger generations are open to talking about that they go to therapy, or my roommate goes to therapy, or things like that. However, it seems to be something that could be out of sight, out of mind, but it's never out of sight, out of mind for the person that's grieving. And grieving could take a long time. and it has its ups and downs. So the person who's grieving tends to still have those feelings, but the world seems to be going on as usual. So in the workplace, it may be difficult for colleagues to, 2 weeks later, remember the grief that you may have experienced,
Right.
right away, and they know you're gone for 3 days, and then you come back, and there you have that support, but then it can dissipate over time in the workplace. I was speaking to someone that I used to what do you call it? Now I already lost, supervise, like or train in mental health. And she said something that was really interesting to me that actually took me a long time to figure out. She said, I don't really get my needs met at work. Like
Mm.
I go to work, I do what's I'm to do. I provide the service while I'm there, but my passion and the things that light me up, that's not from work. And then she talked about some other projects and different things that she's involved with, like the ready part, the things that she likes, and that's where her passion is. So she has looked at things a little bit differently. Whereas back then, I threw my whole self into everything, and I'm like, my passion's here, my everything's here, and I'm like, what's happening? It's not aligned. So I think people are structuring their health and well-being in different ways. Than maybe, I don't want to say I'm the older generation, but people than people did before. So coming to answer your question, I think it's a relationship in a sense. So the organization and the work has their way of doing things when it comes to grief and bereavement, and different organizations provide support in different ways. Yes. And some have the different EAP programs and access to apps and all the different tools, and some may not have those things. So I think it's a matter of the employee taking some matters into their own hands, and part of their resilience is their responsibility. And it's nice to know what support is available in the workplace and utilize that support. So I think it's the employee's job to be knowledgeable about what's available. And I think it's the employer's job to make sure that they're providing a safe space for their employees to come as their whole selves, regardless of what changes are going on in their life. So if it's a grief type of situation, whether they lost someone through passing away or divorce, or if they're going through a health situation, how can we work things out in the workplace that they can still contribute to work, but also take care of their well-being physically? So what would be absolutely beautiful is if in the workplace they look at someone that's going through a mental health or well-being concern, look at it just like someone that's going through a physical concern. The difficulty is we can't see the mental health disabilities. But you can, or some people say abilities, however we want to phrase it, but how can we still provide that support in the workplace for the things that aren't seen? And how can employees feel comfortable enough and psychologically safe enough to verbalize the unseen and request what they need?
Yeah, that is, and I think what you're saying and what sounds like with your Joyful Leader book is that, you're going to you want to build leaders who are emotionally intelligent, who will see and pay attention to their employees who they supervise, and guide them in the right direction, whether that be EAP, or maybe it is seeking something outside of the workplace that would be better suited to whatever challenge they're facing.
Exactly. And sometimes it may come to, okay, maybe where you are is not where you need to be for your own well-being. And maybe looking at when you're tapping into what brings you joy in the ready stage, you may discover some other talents that could be utilized and support the community in a different way. So there are all of these different things. What I'm hoping would happen in the book is people who may not be stressed or burned out would still read it so it can be preventative. And I remember posting something about the book, the pre-launch, and one of these doctors in the medical field said, this book needs to be curriculum for every person in med school, because they never sleep.
Yeah, that's so true.
I was like, yes, I got to figure out how to make that happen. How can we help all those doctors in the future? Because they're going to be taking care of us as we get older.
Yeah, I am hoping that the younger generation brings that about, though, because I do feel like they are kind of teaching us right now that it's okay for us to talk about all those things, all those struggles. It's okay for us to have chats about that. I think that that's a great growth opportunity, and for people like me who are old now, that I can listen and learn from the younger generation.
It was so interesting during the COVID time was when my daughter saw how we worked, because she was home at school, like homeschool basically, and saw my husband working, and she's like, I don't know if I want that in my life. And so she kind of restructured how she wants her life to be. And so they are making steps while they're in college and figuring out what they want to do when they leave, and they have a clear focus on how they want to live their lives.
And it's not what I find so refreshing is that it's not completely focused on money. It's focused on balance and life and what they want to be doing with their life. I love it. I hope they can make all their dreams come true. Nicole, I could talk to you for another 10 hours.
I know, Kelly. This has been amazing. I'm so glad that we connected together and we're able to have this conversation and share this great stuff that you're doing and things that, I'm doing combined, and share it with your audience. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you've been a wonderful guest, and I think you've shared so much wisdom. So before we go, I need you to share with our audience how they can find you and how they can find your book.
Okay. So you can always find me on my website. That's not my website. My website is keeninsights.com. So KEANEINSIGHTS.com. If you want to find information about my book, you do the same thing, keeninsights.com/book. And you will find all the information about my book there. You can reach out to me, and actually you can contact me through my website as well, but email address is nicole@keeninsights.com. I would love to hear any listeners that found value from what we talked about today. I'd love to hear from you. You can email me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn under Nicole Van Valen, or my business, Keen Insights. And I share a lot of goodies there and have a newsletter. So if you want to connect that way, that would be great.
That's wonderful. And that meditation would be on your website as well. They can sign up for that.
I didn't put that on my website yet, but I can definitely send you the link if people want to sign up, if you want to put that in the show notes.
Oh, I will. I'll put it in the show notes.
So that's the joyful meditation. So that's every Monday morning at 7:30 a.m. And it's about 15 minutes to get you energized for your day and your week.
That's wonderful. Nicole, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, take care. We'll see you next time, guys. Thank you for joining me today on Broken Beautiful Me. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and insightful. Remember, every scar tells a story, and every story has the power to heal. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. Your support means the world to me, and it helps spread the message of hope and resilience to more people like us. Don't forget to leave a review and share this podcast with your friends and family. Together, we can create a community of strength and beauty in our brokenness. Until next time, stay strong, stay beautiful, and keep shining.